What is the most disturbing fact you know? Hello, everyone. Write what you think about it. Enjoy the show. Story 1. One of the more recent things I learned about is the Pariah diving disaster, where 4 divers got sucked up into an underwater pipe and 3 of them got stuck in there. The company decided to wait until they were dead instead of doing a rescue operation because money. They said they heard banging for 3 days until it finally stopped. Not a fun way to go. Inside a dark pipe alone, cold and scared. Damn. May those souls rest in peace. Story 2. When gas was introduced into common households during the Industrial Revolutions, people started paying more attention to what they put on their walls, now that they were lit up. They began decorating more, and wallpaper became a much more important part of the modern home. At the time, green was a very popular color, as it had never really been an option to decorate with that color before. However, the green color was obtained with arsenic, as white paints were often obtained through a lead product. After a while, wear and tear made it so that people literally started breathing in bits of their arsenic wallpapers and feeling bad within their homes. Their doctors would then suggest they go on holiday to the sea, as the ocean air often had proven a successful remedy. But of course, it was a remedy simply because they were no longer breathing in arsenic. The companies that made these wallpapers were well aware of their nefarious effects, but it took people boycotting en masse for them to actually stop production several decades later. Story 3. That Munmora power plant in Australia was allowed to operate for decades with a significant diesel leak in an underground reservoir that contaminated the water table. When demolishing the plant, you could light the sand that surrounded the tank on fire, about 50 meters each way, and if you dug lower than the sea level anywhere within about a 1 km radius, you could smell diesel. It's a high fishing surfing area that was far from the only contaminant. PFAS, PFOs, chromium, etc. People live very close to it. People eat the fish for years from the hot water outlet. Was a super popular secret fishing spot. Also, during the demolition there was lots of contaminated water collected. This was sent through a filtration process and pumped into the ocean. It had multiple sediment filters and a water-oil separator. I do not believe it was adequate filtration before it was sent back into the sea. No one seems to know. I only know because I was part of the demo crew that brought it to ground. Makes me wonder how many heavy industrial entities got to do who knows what and get away with it. Story 4. During the cleanup of Pearl Harbor, as the recovery crews for USS West Virginia, BB-48, got deeper into the ship months after the attack, they discovered high in the engine room and a locked storeroom where air bubbles had kept them alive for 2 weeks, based on calendars they used to keep track of time. That was well after divers had made their first passes over the ship, listening for sounds of survivors. Story 5. There's decent evidence that the Challenger astronauts didn't die when the vehicle broke apart. They may have even been conscious and alert inside the crew compartment all the way to the surface of the ocean, which was like a 2.5-minute fall. It's possible they were knocked out, but it's possible they weren't. Story 6. A rare medication reaction called Stevens-Johnson syndrome can cause your skin to blister and eventually peel off, similar to a third-degree burn victim. It's a horrible drug reaction and has a very high mortality rate. It can be caused by almost any medication, including ones you have already taken before and had no prior reaction to. The most common medications that cause it are antibiotics and anti-epileptic medications. Do not the Google pics unless you are not sensitive to medical trauma pics. They are extremely disturbing. Story 7. At approx. 700 parts per million, CO2 starts to act as an asphyxiant in mammals, and cognitive impairment starts kicking in. Imagine a stuffy classroom on a hot afternoon. So what? Just open a window, Tutor bin 76, you idiot. Well, over the past million years, Earth's CO2 levels have fluctuated between 200 and 280 ppm during glacial and interglacial periods, respectively. The first time in all of humanity's existence that CO2 reached 300 ppm was 1950, and then 400 ppm in 2013. We are constantly above 400 now, and only increasing. Fast. Now imagine that same hot, stuffy room, but opening a window no longer helps. That is our future, before it gets bad. Story 8. There's an extremely high chance that Boeing executives contracted a hit on one of their former employees for being a whistleblower, and basically the public response, other than a few angry social media posts, has been, well, yeah, that's just what happens. Story 9. Everything you experience and perceive is just an incredibly vivid hallucination based on very sparse and broadly interpreted data from our own senses. We infer reality. We don't witness it. Story 10. It's incredibly common for people to be eaten by their pets if they die alone. However, it is way more likely in cats than in dogs. Cats will pretty much eat you as soon as their food runs out, if they have any. Some of them will eat you even before their food runs out. Dogs are different. They will only eat you out of necessity, if they've exhausted all previous foodstuffs that they can get to, and if they can't escape from the property, and it will be days before that happens. There is a reason for this. Dogs are omnivores. They will primarily eat meat but can eat vegetables. They can survive without meat. Cats are obligate carnivores, which means they have to eat meat. There's a specific protein that they can only get from meat, and it's essential for their organs to operate properly. Otherwise, they will die, and it's not a quick, quiet death either. So given the absence of meat, your pet cat will eat your soft, squishy bits first, usually the face. Source used to be in RVN. Story 11. The Higgs field might be in a false vacuum state. In the simplest terms, that means the thing that gives matter mass is precarious and might suddenly stop functioning. If it does, it would propagate outward at light speed from the location it stopped and essentially delete everything in a constantly expanding sphere. Because it grows at light speed, we'd never see it coming. It could be on the way right now, possibly from multiple origins. Story 12. The biggest problems facing the latest generations, bigotry, climate change, income inequality, etc., are all possible to fix, but are not only ignored, but actively participated in order to pad the major perpetrator's bottom line, at the expense of damn near everyone else, and it more than likely won't change. Story 13. There are more soil microorganisms in a teaspoonful of soil than there are people on the earth. That the FDA knows, and allows amounts of rat poop, rat hair, and bugs in lots of food and coffee people eat every day. They say it's not economically plausible to have it completely removed. They have a guideline posted online that allows a certain amount to be within quality spec. Story 14. Cows don't just produce milk all the time, they have to have recently had a baby, just like humans. Dairy cows are kept pregnant and nursing their whole lives until retirement. Dairy cows have also been bred to have no maternal instincts, so it's safer for farmers to take away the baby and get the milk. There is also a certain amount of white blood cells and skin cells that is allowed in our milk, about 43,000 per milliliter. White blood cells plus skin cells equal sign pus. Story 15. A particularly unsettling fact about AI is that artificial intelligence can perpetuate and even exacerbate biases found in the data it learns from. If the input data has any form of historical bias, the AI can inherit that bias and apply it at scale. For instance, if an AI system is trained for hiring purposes with data that includes historical gender bias, the AI could favor one gender over another in its decision-making process, perpetuating the cycle of inequality. This highlights the importance of carefully curating the data used to train AI systems and continuously auditing their outputs for fairness. Story 16. Due to the way the universe is expanding, there is something called the light horizon or the cosmological horizon. What it means is that as the universe expands, distant galaxies are moving away faster than the light can cross the gap, meaning that from our perspective, the universe is getting darker and emptier. It won't happen on any kind of scale we can reasonably manage, but eventually, you'll be able to look up into the night sky and see no stars, no galaxies other than our own. Just an endless darkness, all alone in the night. Story 17. Many bridges in Canada were built by Canadian National, CN, or Canadian Pacific, CNP, making them responsible for their maintenance in exchange for being able to use them for their trains. Since the 1990s, both the CN and CNP have refused to continue to maintain the bridges, creating many court battles over this. Meanwhile, since the court cases are ongoing, the cities can't even repair or maintain those bridges. Bridges need constant maintenance to not fall down, so every year that pass endanger the users of those bridges more and more. And many of these bridges have had bits of the bridge fall off as the legal battles continues. Story 18. You probably will see a friend or someone you know die from an accident if you are working in the outdoor industry or recreate in the outdoors regularly. It might even be you. I'm talking rock climbing, kayaking, caving, paragliding, etc. here. It's not something you have to think about if you work regular office work, but as someone studying outdoor education, it's terrifying. Story 19. How little privacy you have online. There's a lot of people who are extremely and terrifyingly tech-savvy, And most companies, including Google, are actively storing and selling your data to almost anyone. The real terror is that most people vastly overestimate how much privacy they have online. You may think, oh, I have nothing to hide, but would you be okay with everyone reading almost every text you've ever sent, every Google search, all the strange porn you've ever seen? Yes, I'm talking to you, Jason. In case you were wondering, it's absolutely zero incognito doesn't work. And anyone who knows what they're doing will dig up swaths of information on you in very little time. Even shorter if it's the NSA or someone with malicious intent. There's a lot of steps to becoming invisible online, but even then, one slip-up is all it takes. Look at Ross Ulbricht. There's lots of very interesting documentaries about him I'd recommend. If you're interested, there's an audiobook by a famous hacker called Kevin Mitnick called The Art of Invisibility that delves heavily into this topic. I'll leave the YouTube link to the full book. Story 20. That even if we got our hands on perfect recycling, teleporters for infinite clean transport, perfectly clean energy sources, a zero carbon emission agreement that every country on Earth agreed to and every person agreed to follow. We wouldn't fix the climate emergency, we'd only stop it from getting worse. It will take millions, if not billions of years, for the climate to return to pre-industrial levels. Life on Earth is only 3.5 billion years old. Humans are only 5-ish million years old. Story 21. I recently found out about the Big Rip. In physical cosmology, the Big Rip is a hypothetical cosmological model concerning the ultimate fate of the universe, in which the matter of the universe, from stars and galaxies to atoms and subatomic particles, and even space-time itself, is progressively torn apart by the expansion of the universe at a certain time in the future, until distances between particles will infinitely increase. And even though that will occur billions of years in the future, it is highly disturbing to me. Story 22. Something a bit different to what I often read here. In cities prone to them, cockroaches can swarm out of city drains if disturbed. There can be vast swarms of cockroaches underground and in various drainage systems. Nothing overly shocking there. But if something disturbs them on a large scale, take a guess as to the only direction they'll often go in. When I lived in China up to recently, my city was well known to be more sanitary than most. It was also close to Taiwan. One day, an almost imperceptible tremor hit the city from Taiwan. Immediately, hundreds, possibly thousands of cockroaches swarmed out of every road drain in what seemed like a mile radius around me. I was on a bus, getting a cinematic angle of everything. I saw clouds of cockroaches breaching drains on both sides of the street, scattering in all directions across the pavement, before darting into open doors, building crevices and up fence posts. Less than 10 seconds later came collective yells of what I can only assume would translate to, "What the ever-loving fucking fuck?" as people dashed to their shop entrances armed with brooms, flinging tens of cockroaches at a time through the air and likely into the faces or windshields of oblivious passers-by. Story 23. Human skin is about as hard as an orange peel when you cut through it. Some people really are thick-skinned, and they are more like cardboard with a scalpel. Internal organs are nice and soft normally, without much in the way of resistance. Oh yes, the rumors are true. Pathology attracts all the gamers, geeks, and weirdos. Don't know why, but we unite under the banner of xylene and formalin. Story 24. The so-called financial system that you are told to invest in is a giant Ponzi scheme. This isn't taught in school because the higher-ups want you to keep putting in money that they then take and use against you. If you all took your money out of the game, brokers, bank accounts, etc., then it would come to a head. These people in suits on Wall Street are nothing but criminals and are degenerate gamblers looking for loopholes to use your money to impress the financial firm they work for. Majority of the stock prices are controlled/set at what these firms want them to be. It's not about supply and demand or fundamentals, like they like to parrot on TV internet. An example is the Aladdin software AI program that BlackRock uses to do high-frequency trading, something that the average household investor can't do. A broker takes your money when you purchase a stock. It has a couple days to settle, after which the stock should be in your account. And by all purposes you think it is, but in the back end, it's not. They give you an IOU, essentially. Similar to your bank account when you deposit money in. They don't hold your deposits. They lend that money out in the form of loans, etc. So when you go to get large sums of money out of the bank, it takes a while because they don't actually have it. Moral of the story: Buy gold and silver. Remove your money from the bank's brokerages. Direct register your shares with your company's transfer agent for actual ownership of what you paid for. And book your shares, as it's the closest thing you will get to actual paper old-school certificates. Last thing, please educate yourself, your friends, and family on the corrupt financial systems. The information is out there.